see you nodding over. You know you falling asleep, right? That you are snoring. Get your ass snoring.
Legacy, oh, legacy, oh.
I love life. I love being alive. I was depressed the first 35 years of my life. That was just the gift. I was born to make people laugh. And that meant I had done a fucking good job. The question was, where is mine? That's some painful shit to admit.
Legacy, oh, legacy.
Jen, of course my eyes are watering already because you're making me laugh. That's what you do. But I wanted to have a conversation with you about your career. I think people think a person like you is sort of just being yourself and just being super alive and passionate and funny and silly and quick. But I know that you're trained. I know that you got your start in the theater and you went to school for this. So for you, the first thing we're going to talk about is something you helped create but weren't ultimately a part of the final product. So today, we're going to begin with Dreamgirls.
Yes, Dreamgirls. Oh my God, you're going back so far.
And the reason I want to talk about Dreamgirls is because Effie, who became a very iconic character on that stage and ultimately on screen, is a character that you helped breathe life into and you helped create. How did that come to you? How did
Michael
that
Bennett
happen?
started a process of working through Broadway shows in a workshop environment. It started with a chorus line.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to develop those characters, not just in a writer's room, but with the people around the table.
Right.
It wasn't just a read through.
Right.
It was a work through. You got up and you sang those songs at a table read, and then we all, of course, left the table and put it on our feet.
Right.
So, yes, I came in after Jenifer Holiday. They kind of knew that they were going to hire her back.
Okay.
Not even kind of. They knew. Nobody could sing like that, darling.
What was your first impression of the character Effie in the beginning? Because
Effie is kind of who I was at the time. Desperate, young, unwise, making very bad life choices.
Talented but invisible?
Yes. 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 And Estelle Getty, who was the old woman on Golden Girls.
Right.
At that time, Effie was a nurse. She was desperate for stardom. But she had this big heart where there was a scene where she, Jesus, Effie would be wheelchairing her through Central Park. And we had a song where she would complain like Driving with Miss Daisy.
Uh-huh.
And Effie was like, bitch, please. I got rehearsal.
Right.
I'm going to be late and I don't care.
Interesting.
So it was all those intricate things about Effie. The songs were insane. I watched Henry Krieger create Step Into the Bad Side. Ooh. Woo, woo, woo. And there stood Oba Babatunde and Cleavon Derricks and Curtis, Ben Harney. They were gods in the theater. The harmonies, everybody just, Shirley Ralph, Loretta Devine. Yeah, she had that voice. And even though my man throws, and we all brought who we were. We were ready for that. We were ready for those emotions, the betrayal that white artists would just steal our shit. My voice was meteoric at the time. I was so young. I had no fear in me. I was right out of college. And all I knew was I was going to be a star because I wanted my mother to love me.
How far did you get in the process before
Oh,
you
we
realized?
finished. We finished the workshop. There was a read-through for the Schuberts and the Nederlanders. These were the great producers on Broadway at the time. And it was Michael Peters that really wanted me. Michael Peters, this is a true story, got up and ran around the room because he couldn't believe how far my kick went behind my head. This kick went behind my head at the time. And him being the choreographer was like, oh my God, she can do anything. And the voice, once again, my voice was described as half laser beam, half lava flow. I would hit notes that would damn near explode my head. That's how training at Webster University, prepared me for Broadway. I had no fear in me.
How was it for you when the show did come out and it became this hit?
Here we go with the hurt. I did UB National, which was very successful. And all those reviews I just told you about, I got those kind of reviews. So it wasn't like, oh, poor me, I'm never going to work. No, child, not back then. I had a job. It was about a job. I didn't care. That telephone call with Tom Ian, I'm going to tell the absolute truth. When he said, we're not bringing you back, we're going to hire Jenifer Holiday. I said, okay, just like that. Okay, because I had a job. He wanted me to break down. Come on, go back to it. I didn't. I did say, oh, why? Just like that, but I knew. He said, because when you're on stage, I can't even see anybody else. And with my Jenifer Lewisness and in my early 20s, I was like, I'm so sorry. I know.
Can we jump ahead some years to you being on television? What people know about me is how much of an impact A Different World had on my life,
Yes.
my career, my person. And when Jada Pinkett was here, we talked about this show needing some new blood, needing some new energy. And you were a part of that new energy. Dean Dorothy Dandridge Davenport, a name we can't forget. Debbie Allen obviously was a big part of that happening. What was that time in your life like? And what were you thinking when you walked onto the set of A Different World for the first time?
Well, first of all, back then I didn't watch TV. So I had no idea. I was busy writing one-woman shows. I was always somewhere creating, Lena. I didn't watch television.
So you weren't fazed by A Different World?
No, I wasn't fazed by a damn thing.
Was the role offered to you? Did Debbie call you and say,
offered.
come
And
to
here's a good story. I just met the woman who Dean Dorothy Dandridge Davenport was based on. Her name is Dr. Johnetta Cole, who's the former president of Spelman College.
Wow.
Debbie called me, and she called me. She said, I want you to play the dean. And she said she based that character on one of her deans.
Wow.
At Howard. And it was Dr. Johnetta Cole.
What were you pulling from when you got that role? Because she's such an interesting character. It's like there's a really great episode where they're talking about dealing with gun violence.
Yes.
She talks about losing, a nephew to gun violence. And
yes.
She's funny. And there's the episode where you guys are sort of spoofing the election and you guys get to sing. So you had a lot of real estate on that show.
Yes, I did.
I'm just curious, what were you
Well, Debbie trusted me with the
from?
material.
Mm-hmm.
I was pulling from basically a professor I had at Webster University. She was the dean of students. So when Debbie said a dean, I went to my dean, who was brilliant. Her name was Shirley LaFleur. She was a poet, famous poet in St. Louis, where I'm from.
Wow.
So I pulled from her the compassion that she had for me when I went walking in her office, upset. She loved me. People loved me because I entertained them and I made them laugh. That was the gift. That was just the gift. I was born to make people laugh. She said this to me, and it has carried me through my life. She said, Jenifer, I've observed you. She said, once you've come up with something and they find that out, oh, sweetie, you've gone on to something new.
Mm-hmm.
So don't ever worry. Don't ever worry about that. Be flattered by it. You're special. So when Debbie said, Dean, that's the scene I pulled from Orphan. It wasn't her that had the grandness, because, Dean Dorothy Dandridge, bad.
She had the list.
She's on my list. She was firm. She was smart. She was wise. There's a difference.
Pulled up.
Very, very pulled up. Debbie let me do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
She just set me free. I said, is it okay? I was young, and is it okay? She said, don't change a thing.
There's a great blooper. Well, there's a great bloopers reel of A Different World, and you're in there, you get something wrong, and you say, am I fired? And she says, honey, you are never fired. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. December is my favorite time to slow down. Something about the cold makes everything feel a little softer. Blankets, tea, and just spending quality time with loved ones. There's nothing like wrapping up on the couch, watching the next episode of your favorite show, or sharing a quiet night with the people you love. But staying cozy and comfortable isn't just about physical comfort. It's about taking care of your mind, too. That's where therapy can really make a difference. It's not just for when things are difficult. It helps with building healthy habits, setting boundaries, and feeling more centered in everyday life. I cannot stress enough how impactful therapy can be for anyone who seeks it out. And if you're thinking about starting, BetterHelp is a great place to begin. It's all online, easy to fit into your schedule, no commutes, no waiting rooms. You just fill out a quick questionnaire and they'll match you with a licensed therapist. If it's not the right fit, you can switch at any time without extra costs. Find comfort this December with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/legacytalk today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/legacytalk. The thing we're going to talk about next is a feature. And it, to me, is, I think, one of the most important movies that we have about one of our greatest icons.
Oh, my God, yes.
Clearly, I'm talking about What's Love Got to Do with It. You play such an important role in that movie. The thing that I picked up on is beyond the lines and what you gonna do with all that money anime and why are these pearls tied around my neck. And the first time we really see you as the mother of a giant, but you're playing probably one of the most complicated mothers I've really ever seen on screen.
One thing I learned in developing a character, bring what you are to that moment. Mm-hmm. You have to bring who you are to the character. Now, my mother was the oldest of 7. She had 7 sisters. Mm. And I think 8 brothers. The oldest of 16. So for Tina Turner's mother, Zelma Bullock, who I met, by the way.
Wow.
In a vitamin store.
Of course.
I heard somebody in the other aisle say, Aileen! Oh, Jesus Christ. What a moment. I was looking for something. It was just some kind of magical moment. And I peeped around the aisle, and I knew it was her because Tina was the spitting image of her. She had the legs and the muscle in her. It was Tina Turner. And you know how I betrayed her in that movie.
Right.
I was scared to approach, but I couldn't help it. I walked over to her. This is beautiful. This was a beautiful moment, Lena. And I stood timidly. I said, I'm getting ready to cry. Oh, God. I said, Miss Bullock. And she turned around, And she turned around with that, who could that be? And she saw my face, and this is what she did. She went, oh, I wanted to be so dressed up when I met you.
Wow.
Oh, my God. And only a woman from that era would say such a thing. I wanted to be so dressed up when I met you. And that meant I had done a fucking good job. That made me so happy. And then she invited me up to the house where Tina Turner bought her. She was cooking at the stove. And she said, now you know all that stuff in that movie. I didn't do all that stuff. And you and Aileen said, Mama, you know you did all that and more. And that was my cue to get out of there. Because I didn't know what was going to happen after all of that. I didn't know. I knew it was Miss Bullock and Aileen. And I knew I had to get out of there.
Wow. So it wasn't difficult?
Not at all. Not at all. Because I brought all of my aunts to Zelma. Zelma Bullock was from St. Louis. I'm from St. Louis. I knew who that St. Louis woman was. Game knows game. And when I saw that script, I said, oh, I know her. I know who she is with the cigarette and the liquor.
How stunned were you after watching it for the first time? Yeah. That's how we all felt.
Literally. And on down to the floor.
Yeah.
That rape scene.
Mm-hmm.
That fight scene in the car. No, we hadn't seen anything like this before.
No.
And then, of course, that was my mother.
Right? Can we talk about Poetic Justice?
Tupac Shakur.
You know, you play another very stern but loving mother.
I always brought warmth to those mothers. I owe that to the middle-aged Black women in America that I was portraying. Yes, we bring the sass. Yes, we bring the intensity and the...
Gravitas?
Yes, the gravitas. But Black women, and they're going to take care of their kids. Ooh, it's called tough love. She going to cuss you out before she rocks you. And she will rock you to sleep. When she said, boy, shut the fuck up and put the cigarette out.
Unforgettable.
When you heard Regina King cuss as much as she did, she was brilliant in that.
Come on, Aisha.
Listen, I had to show the world where those kids came from, the parent they came from.
What was it like working with John Singleton?
I couldn't understand I couldn't understand a fucking thing he ever said. Because he was so sweet and he was so soft-spoken. When I said, boy, shut the fuck up and put the cigarette, you think that line was in there?
I know it wasn't.
It was not in the script. He laughed so hard when I said that.
Was Tupac startled? Because I was the first time I saw it.
Let me tell you something about Tupac. Tupac was a cold professional, baby. He had his lines down. He knew what he was doing. He came to the table. And I needed to rehearse. Because if you want to know the truth, I kind of knew who Tupac was.
Classic. Perfect.
So I went to his trailer because I wanted to rehearse. I knew he was famous. I knew, I got to understand. I wasn't listening to all that, that anger that your generation brought in at that time. I was still on Aretha, honey, Gladys, and, Barbara Streisand,
Easy
and then
listening.
I heard all y'all cussing. I was like, oh, my God, what's going on?
No, you're not talking. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I knocked on his door, and one of his, cronies opened the door, and baby, a cloud of dope came out.
Mm-hmm. The good stuff.
I mean, the good stuff. The green, y'all call it.
Mm-hmm. Chronic.
That smoke in my car, I got high as a kite immediately. Mm-hmm. So I walked on in there, and there were girls, and he was in the back like a king, and I said, I was kind of scared. I said, all right, everybody get the fuck out of here. He's got to rehearse. And he looked at me. I didn't know if he was going to kill me or shoot me or what the fuck. He said, I like her, man. Y'all gonna get out, man. I got to rehearse, man. And we rehearsed. And that scene, I don't think we did. It was like maybe 3 or 4 takes.
We're going to go back to TV for a moment. You brought this up already, and I just could not talk about it, is the pilot of Friends.
Oh, yeah.
Which you're in. And
well, wasn't it the second episode?
No, it's the pilot.
It's the pilot?
I believe you're in the pilot.
Now, let me tell you how that happened. I had toured the country with a concert. It was called From Billy to Lena with Jenifer.
And how did Marta Kaufman hear about it?
I love it. Marta Kaufman's husband was my pianist who traveled with me.
Shut up.
So I just happened to be at dinner at their house the night she announced they just picked up my show. I said, what show? She said, it's called Friends. And I said, any black people in it?
There are Christmas movies, and there are what I like to call canon Christmas movies. Meaning it's a movie that you have to watch at Christmas time. Or else
it's not Christmas.
It's not Christmas. Okay? And I'm really honored and happy today to be talking about The Preacher's Wife for an obvious reason, in that you play Whitney Houston's mother.
It was magic. She was lovely. She was lovely, and she was humble. You know, she wanted my help because we had these scenes. Every scene I had was with her.
Right.
What can I say? I was privy to sit there. I get chills thinking about it. To watch Whitney Houston, whose voice, to me, was the 8th wonder of the world. There were only 7 back then. But watching her sing the genre, gospel.
Come on. Help is on the way.
That she came up with. It was magic. It was majesty. Just her instrument.
Can we talk a little bit about Antwone Fisher?
I was doing Strong Medicine. I think it was like the 5th season. You know, very comfortable, not worrying about a gig, you know, making more money than I'd ever made. Loving the role of Lana Hawkins. And they called from Denzel's office. So they said, Denzel wants you in San Diego tomorrow morning to film. And I was like, how about you tell Denzel Washington, if he wants me to be in San Diego tomorrow morning, to call me his damn self. He called. He called with Sally Richardson in tow because she played his
Sally
wife
Richardson
at the time.
Whitfield.
And they were just a laughing. Come on down here and have fun. You come on over here and sit next. Come on over here and sit next to me, babe. Yeah. I didn't even read the script. I didn't even know what it was. I mean, be down there tomorrow. And he said, here's the scene. Just be you.
Wow.
And I don't think that line was in the movie on this page. It was, you can sit here. Turn it into, hey, you can come on over. Jesus, I cracked myself. Come on over here and sit next to me.
When you're going into set, particularly say for like Antwone Fisher, for example, where there's not a lot there, is the goal not necessarily to make a meal out of it, but is the mission to be memorable? Because you always seem to leave us with something.
Here it is. I am honest. I am focused. And most of the time I know exactly what I'm doing. But no, I don't think let me make this memorable. Let me say this with great humility, and I do mean with great humility. When you're given a gift at birth to get the attention of the people, and to need that attention. See, I needed that attention because I wanted my mother to love me. Take that in. That's a powerful quest.
It also feels like you're channeling the ancestors a bit too.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't go in there saying, oh, let me make this memorable. Lena Waithe, I am memorable. Like I said, when I got my star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame,
Finally.
the real work was off camera.
Right.
I know who I am now. I'm memorable because I have a light inside of me that has never gone out. I've given up many times, but I didn't quit. You can't quit what you are. I became the dream.
Yeah, it feels like you're remembering to carry everything about who you are to the set.
Absolutely.
And that's sort of what I think is...
Because that's all we have.
Right.
Is who we are.
You know what's interesting? You are someone that people love to look at in a scene. And that's why this next sort of chapter we're going to talk about is super interesting. Last night, I revisited Cars. And I remember I was around that time in your life, I think when Cars was coming out. How differently do you approach a character when we actually aren't going to see you walk across the frame?
It's so different. Animation from my performances on television. Once again, I am more method, if method at all, on stage.
Mm-hmm.
I bring, oh God, on stage is where I breathe.
Mm-hmm.
It is the breath of life to me on stage. In animation, you are in the moment. You cannot come out of that character for a second. You know, gas, I got lots of gas. She was very sure of herself, that character. It was a challenge to
be in a booth by yourself. That's what...
A booth by myself, giving a voice to a car.
Right. Before we get to a very big credit that a lot of people know you for, there was this time where you were always working, of course, and popping up, but I'd love for you to speak to those windows of time in sort of an actor's career, or their life rather, when they sort of have to constantly remind themselves of who they are, even when the world may not be as clear on that definition as you.
When we're not working, it's always, I guess that's in any career, will I ever work again? What's coming up? But in my case, Lena, I did a show.
Were you ever thinking about a career you dreamed about?
I've had to ask myself, when a lot of my peers would get the awards and they had their moment on television that I always dreamed of, to thank my high school teacher, that moment.
Yeah.
Never had that moment.
Right.
Won many awards, but never had that moment. That Oscar, Emmy, Grammy, Tony.
Right.
Now, in my mind, I have them because, Jackie's Back is my Oscar. My Audible of Mother Black Hollywood, my memoir, is my Grammy. And what's the other one?
Blackish is your Emmy.
What's my Tony? Oh, my performance that I went later into Hairspray. My Tony. So I have these awards. But I had to ask myself many times, Jenny, are you jealous? Ooh, that fucking word. Jealous. The question was, where is mine? That's some painful shit to admit. Where's mine? Where's my Emmy nomination for Blackish? Here's the thing. Yeah, girl, I'm so fucking crazy. I'm so busy doing the work. I don't even think about that kind of shit. I didn't even know I could be nominated because I wasn't in the cast, the original cast. I came on later. So I wasn't even thinking when it didn't happen the first time. Like, because, Lena, I'm so busy doing. I'm not looking at anything else. I live in the moment. I love life. I love being alive. I was depressed the first 35 years of my life. Very high and very low. A lot of dark rooms. But I never closed the curtains. Oh, I was under dark covers. I was under the cover in dark, but I never closed the curtains. I just had a near-death accident in Tanzania. I had to be air-evac'd to Kenya. I had a 9-hour surgery, 6 days in ICU. That was Betty Davis. You gotta love me. 6 days in ICU, 3 blood transfusions, 12 days in the hospital, flown back to the States by Doctors Without Borders to manage my pain. I fractured my acetabulum, which is the socket that holds the femur in place. Basically, I hit my right buttocks falling 10 feet off a balcony at my hotel, and when my right buttocks hit concrete, Jesus Christ.
As we come to...
Close. Oh, no, there's no close. I need to finish that one story. What was it? Not even here. But it left the room. I see you nodding over. You know you falling asleep, right? You are snoring. Get over here snoring. I'm doing my life. I haven't even gotten to my childhood yet. We haven't even started. So in 1950s...
We're not getting to that today.
In 1957, the baby diva was born.
Last but most certainly
Yes,
not
my love.
least, how did the role that you got on Blackish come to you?
Oh, I was on a yacht in Athens when they called. And he said, it's a new show called Blackish. And then they said to play Lawrence Fishburne's wife. They had me at Lawrence Fishburne.
Okay, come on.
Lawrence and I, on What's Love Got to Do With It, we became sister and brother. Great story. Lawrence Fishburne had to do a screen test with Ike Turner's wigs. And that morning, now we had done the table read. Lawrence was very impressed with the things I said about the character. And so we had a connection. And it was a little nasty connection. Tasty once again.
Ridiculous person.
But once again, I had just fallen in love. And I knew his girlfriend at the time. But still, his trailer was right there.
Temptation.
So the next morning, I am always in a robe. Everybody knows that. When I'm singing at the piano on the internet, I'm in a robe. I'm always in a robe.
Nothing underneath.
Nothing, naked. So that morning, I was at craft service looking at the breakfast. And he came up behind me. Now, we both ignored that little thing that happened at the table. Tasty.
Mm-hmm.
And he came up behind me and kind of was in my ear. Now, I'm naked, and Lawrence Fishburne is behind me. The only thing separating us was the robe.
Uh-huh.
So I turned around. He said, how did you sleep last night? And I turned around, as only Jenifer Lewis can. And I said, because I was just falling in love, I said, well, Lawrence, I was fucking till 3 a.m. So I didn't get much sleep. And he cracked up because he knew it was true. And I laughed with him. And from that moment on, we were sister and brother.
I love it.
But hold on a minute. I wanted to... And this is true, because, you know, I'm more aligned in my skin now, more spiritual, happier.
Mm-hmm.
The day I became a true star, was the day I realized everybody was one. I was forced to be an observer of life, being in bed for that long. A human being opposed to a human doing.
Mm-hmm.
You learn a lot of shit when you observe life, when you hush a little bit. Little loud, Jenny Lewis. When you learn to listen. When you learn to pay attention. God damn, those are lessons, girl. That's what I'm excited about. Show business is brushing my teeth. Action. Places. Where we going? Who's on? But when you wake up, who are you? To even bring it to the set, for God's sake.
Here's my last question. What's your definition of a great entertainer?
Caring about the audience. Honoring the audience. Loving the audience. All of those wonderful people out there in the dark. Knowing you're responsible. So give them everything you've got. And I've got a lot to give. End of story, my love.
That is a really beautiful definition, and I think you basically described yourself.
Oh.
And I say that because you talk about taking care of the audience, but you've taken care of so many people that have come into your life and into your home. And I'm honored to be one of those people. DJ's one of those people. And the list is really endless. I know you haven't technically given birth, but you've birthed us. You've raised us, and you've shown us how to be not just resilient, but to believe in our gifts, to never forget where the gift comes from, and to always honor it. And I think as I watched you before I got to meet you, I see that there isn't much difference. And when you say you bring all of you to all of these amazing characters you played over the years, it's true, it's real. You bring your history, you bring your family, you bring your trauma, you bring your pain. But I think the thing that connects you to us so much is your humor, your ability to laugh through even the darkest hour. And this is technically Legacy Talks with Lena Waithe, and I think that's such a huge part of your legacy is your humor. You've been through so much, but you remind us all to still laugh, not just the surface kind, but that deep laughter from the pit of our stomachs. And I think it's that ability is that you will live forever. You will forever be a part of our culture, of this industry. So, EGOT or not, you are someone that will never die. And I'm honored to have been raised by you, to share space with you, to laugh with you. I am really deeply moved to be having this conversation, for it to be recorded, because I want people to come back to this conversation and remember everything you're saying, because it's invaluable.
I want to say one thing. First of all, thank you. That was very moving, and it's not easy for me to sit through that same intense love that I try to give to people, not try, that I give to people when it's expressed back to me. When I pass this plane, y'all ain't got to say nothing else. But Jenifer motherfucking Lewis cried power. That everybody recognizes, no matter how big the fire is, you have the power to walk the fuck through it. That's it.
That's a good.
Legacy, oh legacy.